Many marketing leaders and teams just do things the way that they've always been done and are either hesitant or, scared to do things differently. So to do things differently, how do you create that culture within a marketing team that people want to, come in every day and know that it's acceptable to swing and miss, fairly consistently?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things. I think one is set it up so the misses aren't so painful, right? Like do small incremental bets to learn before you make a giant bet. So like the example I always give for this is like when I was at G2, I talked about the framed reviews. We wanted to do that campaign. We didn't have any platform or anything to do any of it. So we could have gone out and said like, okay, we need to get a Sendoso in, we'll hire a designer and then we'll get them all printed. And we're going to send it out to our top 3,000 prospects, all this sort of stuff. Instead, we had our in-house designer design something in like 2 days, printed them at wherever, got frames from Michael's, and we all sat in the conference room on Friday, and I had the marketing team box them all up, literally frame them all. And so Gina Carlos cut her finger. Sorry, Gina, on a frame. And we framed them all up manually. We boxed them all up, and we had task rabbits come and pick them up and take them and ship them out. And so we did that in like a week's time. And so total costs for the frames was like, $20 a frame. So it was $2,000 and the prints were like $300. So like $2,300 we were in a direct mail campaign in a week's time to 100 prospects. And then we had BDRs follow up. And then we had the whole program and stuff like that. And we got like a 25% meeting rate. And it's like, okay, now there's something here. If we had no meeting set from that, okay, we spent $2,400, right? It's not the end of the world. It's not like I went out and just dropped $1 million on a campaign. And so now it's like, okay, now we have something here and we can scale it. And so it's like you make a small, short-term kind of bet and go quickly to learn, like, is there something here? Because that's as much of a thing as anything, right? Like as much as you think this might be the campaign, you're probably wrong. And so the stakes of failing aren't that high when you're doing like 2 to 3 of those a month, right? And so I think the way you get to that point is kind of what I've built out at most of the companies I work at, where it's just like every month you kind of lay out the goals. And you're like, okay, what are the ideas that are outside of the normal, things we're doing already? Like you have your steady state kind of things. And so what are the 2 to 3 things we're going to try this month that are outside of that? And so everyone will put in ideas in an Asana board before we ever even met. So all month people are throwing in random ideas. And so the worst thing is like you bring people into a meeting room and you're like, okay, brainstorm, go. Like the people don't work that way. Right. And so it's
Crickets. Yeah. I've been there.
Yeah. And so by letting people have the space, they see something and they're like, oh, I'm going to add that to the board. Right. And so it starts kind of going and going, and then people have to pitch their ideas, and it turned into this like super fun meeting once a month where everyone's pitching their ideas of like creative things we should be doing. And they're all over the place. And so they're direct mail campaigns. I thought you said your favorite direct mail. I thought we sent pennies to people at one point.
Oh, you got to tell that story. Let's hear it.
Eddie Schlaner. So if you don't know him, go follow Very Good Copy.
We're doing another episode with him in a couple of weeks. He is the absolute best.
Yeah. So he's got this idea of like the bulky mailer where you put something in, into an envelope that would just like, you get an envelope and it's like, it's got something in it. So you want to open it up and see what it is. And so we sent pennies to people. So this is a campaign that literally cost $1, or like it cost more in stamps than it did like the actual. And the message was, the B2B buying journey has changed. 90 or whatever the stat was, 90% of people do their research before they ever come to your website. So you have 2 options. Like you can go claim your profile on G2 where we have 6 million buyers coming a month, or you can take this penny, throw it in a wishing well, and hope you're part of that 5%. And that was the message we sent. And we couldn't really even track it because it was like people trying to claim their pages and all this sort of stuff. But that was like one of the things.
That is so genius.
But it's trying out. And that's like the fun part of marketing, right? It's like when you get to do those types of campaigns, that's the fun part people latch onto and they get excited about. It's not like, hey, go write this 15-part email nurture series. Like that's not really the thing. And so I think always thinking through like, what are those ideas? And so we did a bunch of that kind of stuff all the time. And some of it was in paid campaigns. Like, what if we did this crazy offer where we just, offered people a drone or whatever it might be, and we would try it. And so like, I think it's it's figuring out having a culture where you're encouraging those ideas. And as a leader, like one of the things I always tried to do was come with the worst idea. Right? Like I want the worst, most outlandish idea. So everyone sees like, oh, he's got horrible ideas. So it's totally getting are crazy, right? Because I think that's the thing people are afraid of is like, I don't want to throw out an idea that's a bad idea. And it's like most of them should be bad ideas. But we're gonna do 2 to 3 of them every single month. And that's just gonna be part of our cadence. And so if you can bake that in and make the risk low enough, it becomes a really fun place to work, which is a big part of it. And just having marketing teams that work well.
So let's turn back the clock. Like what? This would have been 3, 4 years ago when you were doing this sometime in there. We're having this brainstorm with the team. Everybody throws out, some dumb ideas, a few occasional good ones. It's a safe space. There's no judging. How do you kind of land on which 2 or 3 bets that you're going to make that month? Like what's that thought process that you're, walking through when reviewing each idea?
So every idea you had to pitch, and you had to pitch with like, what is the goal that your impact is? So you might have the idea of like, I'm going to send pennies to people. Okay. Why? Like, what is the goal you're trying to do? And for that, it was like getting people to clean their page or profile. And so that was like the major goal we were trying to impact. And so we kind of just went around and was like, who likes what idea? We kind of just voted on it. Cause like, and so that was kind of the criteria is like, can we do this quickly? Do we think it could have a big impact? Is it something we can continue to scale, versus just like a one-off thing? Cause sometimes people have ideas, but it's like, well, this will take forever to execute. Whereas like sending pennies is like, oh, we can do that tomorrow. Right. It's like,
Well, you probably got to go to the bank and get a sleeve of $1, which might take some time, but yeah.
we legitimately did have to send someone to the bank to get that. Yeah.
See, no, I like that though, because and worked with G. Cobain before, like we've seen his experimentation framework. That dude is like the craziest mad scientist in the world. And some of it's too much right out of the gate. So to start small, to use kind of a simple way of reviewing things, approving it, and just testing it out before you scale it. I love that. G's experimentation framework is amazing, but it was way too complicated for what we needed at that point in time.
Yeah. And the goal shouldn't just be that you're only constantly running experiments. Cause that's the other thing that early stage startups run into. It's like, they have nothing that's like bread and butter, on a daily basis. So the idea is like, everything has to be, if it's working, how do we incorporate that as our part of our strategy? So now, okay, direct mail is working really well for us. How do we, incorporate this as part of our overall strategy? And run it every quarter, like the frame review campaign. We did that every single quarter. And we would just work with sales team. So like the penny one, we didn't really get as many results as we hoped. So we stopped doing it. Right. And so like, there's lots of things, but it's like you move things in, to mainstay, and then you slowly are building out programs, right, that are like consistent, that no, every single month, we're going to do this frame review campaign and we're going to get, $250,000 in pipeline because of this campaign. So that's how you start to build scalability. And that's why I think like, then there is a path to hitting some of those numbers. And a lot of times they're not through the channels you necessarily think. And so there's lots of ways you can start bolting on channels onto those types of campaigns too.